Today I'm going to talk about certain UFC fighters' careers that went two different ways. Ones that were never the same after losses, and other ones that it looked like their career was on a downward spiral, but they made a great recovery. Because I find it interesting how sometimes when a fighter gets knocked out or just has a big loss where they take a lot of damage, some people's careers just get ruined off that, but then others it seems to actually help in a way and they get better from it. So I want to break that down and kind of explain why that is. Starting off with a fighter that was never the same, let's just get this sad one out of the way. Tony Ferguson. It's actually crazy looking at his record right now. Went from a 12-fight win streak to a 7-fight losing streak. Still so sad. Obviously the main thing that happened to him is Justin Gaethje. I still wish he didn't take that fight. Should have fought Khabib 5 times and it never happened, and then they made the stupid interim title fight. Tony was literally a favorite going into that fight, imagine that. He was 36 years old when he lost that. Now he's 40 and hasn't won a fight since. His next 2 fights after that, he didn't look extremely different, but then after the Michael Chandler fight, he definitely did. It was sad too because it wasn't just a chin problem getting knocked out, it was a movement problem too. He looked slower, just never looked the same. So I think his age combined with a brutal war and then one of the most brutal KOs we've ever seen, it's unlikely that anyone would be able to come back from that. I wonder what's next for him. I honestly hope he just retires for health's sake, but if not, maybe one last fight against another old legend to end it off. Going off that, let's talk about the guy who did it to him, Justin Gaethje. Now he's someone that hasn't taken a whole lot of horrible losses or anything, but I put him on this list just because I want to go back to the early part of his UFC career and see where he was, because it's vastly different than where he is now. Remember his UFC debut against Michael Johnson? Just an absolute war. He almost lost that, but he got an amazing win. Then he lost his next 2 to Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, both by KO. Then after that, he went on his run, and even now, he recovered really well after getting destroyed by Oliveira. So my point with him on this list is, I think at the beginning of his career, he was just kind of this 50-50 fighter who just goes out and fights like a madman. So back then, I know a lot of people didn't expect him to go very far because of that, which made sense because he fought with this crazy style. And most people thought he wouldn't come close to the belt. They're like, no, he's just a guy that's going to go out here and entertain us and win and then lose and win and then lose. But his style has definitely changed for the better. It's gotten way more calculated, particularly in his Rafael Fiziev fight. We saw that. So yeah, I think he made a really good career recovery here. I remember back in the day, they were talking about he could get cut if he had a 3rd loss in a row at the early part of his career, because he wasn't this established guy yet. And I know that's crazy to say, but it was true back then. Someone else who made a strong recovery is Shan Strickland, kind of for the same reason as Gaethje. I don't think many people would have thought he would become champion or even touch the top of this division, but it happened. He's had a couple of early UFC career losses to Kamaru Usman and then that other dude that spinning wheel kicked him. But what I'm more talking about here is the Pereira KO, obviously, and then after that, he lost to Cannonier. Thinking about that, you wouldn't really think he would make a comeback, but considering where he was. But after that, they gave him 2 lower-ranked, but still pretty skilled guys, in my opinion, and he beat them both. Big wins. Got the title shot. Did he deserve it? Probably not. I get that, but he still got it, because that's just where the division was at. And then he ran through Izzy and became champ. Like I said, I think just with his skill set and how his career went, nobody would have predicted that. I think nowadays the fans respect Strickland's style and skill a lot more than they did. They realize he is the real deal. But back then, people definitely didn't. So because of that reason, I had to put him on the list. Going back to a not so good career, let's talk about Dominic Reyes. This one again is really sad and pretty surprising too, because unlike Tony, where I think age played a decent factor in it, this one definitely doesn't. I mean, all these losses were when he was in the prime age for a fighter. The prime of his career is what it should have been. But yeah, obviously we know the story. He pretty much beat John Jones. I think 85-90% of people agree that he won the fight. He got robbed, a lot of people say, and after that, obviously he looked pretty promising. I mean, when you arguably beat the greatest fighter of all time, it's yeah, people are going to think you're going to be the next champ, and then Jones kind of took his hiatus. But then he got KO'd in his next 3 fights cold. He fought some tough guys, as we know now, but especially his last fight against Ryan Spann, it looked really bad. He got KO'd pretty easy and pretty quick in that one. So the problem with him is pretty much particularly just his chin. I mean, it's not age, it's not really skill either, maybe defensive skill, but I think it's really just his chin. It's just kind of shot at this point. Just some of those fighters where the chin just gets shot and it's I don't know what you can really do after that. how can you recover your chin? I don't know if it's even possible. Not sure if he's going to fight again, but I hope he can somehow make a career recovery, but it's going to be hard. The last guy I want to talk about here is Charles Oliveira, because he has one of the most interesting careers to me. He lost a lot of his early UFC fights. He was labeled as a quitter, and he mostly had wins back then, but the early part of his career was very 50-50. And almost all of his losses were by finish, and he had some questionable ones from a lot of people's eyes, and that's where the whole quitter thing comes into place. But then something switched, and this is where the point is. I want you to look at this stretch of fights here. Loss, win, loss, loss, win, loss. Lost 4 of his last 6 fights. 2017, lost by KO to Paul Felder. But then after that, that's where it seemed like the switch flipped. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 became champ. 10, 11 fight win streak. I don't know what happened to him after that Felder loss, but he changed. And he changed for the better. And it was crazy to see. You can even talk about his recovery after his loss to Makhachev when he beat Dariush recently. I mean, that was huge too. And after all that, he's only 34 years old. He's someone that came into the UFC super young, and he had to learn. So I think when someone starts young, it's like they're prone to a lot of losses, but they're also prone to learning from them well because of their age. But yeah, I'm very excited for his fight coming up at 300. Not sure if he'll win it. Definitely has a good chance. Definitely has a good chance to lose too. I think it's very 50-50. He's got a tough task, but we know from me just explaining everything, if anyone can do it, it's definitely him.